Welcome to Macc-Pow at Home, a series of cosy chats with cartoonists and those from the world of comics, supported as ever by Macclesfield Town Council. Thank you for watching the videos. If you're watching on the repeat, then hello to you too as well. I don't want to leave anybody out. And thank you for watching the video so far. We've had some great chats with people over the past, I think, 3 weeks now, and we've got lots more to come. But today, my guest is Janna Morishima. I think, Janna Morishima, and she is a literary agent for comics. So I thought it'd be fun to talk to Janna about a different side of comics. So we'd be talking to cartoonists, those who create, but I thought it'd be interesting to talk about somebody who helps those cartoonists get their work out there. So I'm going to bring in Janna now. As you know, if you watch this, you've been watching these interviews, I have a few little tricks here. So let's bring in Janna. A little bit of a round of applause there for you, Janna. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And I cut the crowd off like that. They're very well trained, so they just stop clapping as soon as I give them the little indication. Yeah, they've been practicing, so they've been doing this for all of the show so far. So they're very well trained now in week 3. So Janna, so nice to meet you. And as I mentioned in your intro, I thought it'd be great. The great thing about Macc-Pow, so for those people who don't know, who may be just watching this video for the first time and maybe go back and watch the other ones afterwards, Macc-Pow is a comic art festival that I organise in my hometown of Macclesfield in Cheshire in the UK. And it's a small event, but I still want to try and compete with the bigger comic festivals. The focus is on comics and the comic art. It's not about sort of extending it to the world of film and that kind of thing, which is fine, but that's not what this event is about. But still, with it being a small event, I still wanted to sort of cover a lot of different bases. And as you know, Janna, comics can look like this, comics can look like that, comics can look like, oh wow, I didn't know comics could look like this. And so the event is about showing people just how comics can be so diverse. And I think one of the things that I thought would be fun today to talk to somebody who helped allow people who's maybe had diverse work, how to get their work out there, because you are a comics literary agent. Mm-hmm. So basically, just give people a little bit of an idea of what you actually do on the very basic principle of what you do.
Well, the thing that most people think of when they think of literary agents is negotiating book contracts. Right. So that is a part of what I do. It's an important part of what I do, but it's so much more than that. So basically, what I do is I work with individual creators to help them with their career, and that is a big endeavor. It involves editorial development, creative development, like helping them sort through their ideas, decide which of their projects both they're most inspired to work on, but also have the most market potential. Right. So it's always a balancing act between those two. And then I also am constantly out there meeting with editors, meeting with book scouts, meeting with production studios, journalists, basically anybody in the world of book publishing and comics, and even beyond in the world of film and TV and IP in general. Right. And together, the creator and I are constantly trying to develop projects that help them make a living doing what they do.
Yes. So do people come to you with finished comics, or do they come to you with ideas, or is it a bit of both?
It's a bit of both. I would say that now, because of having become so busy so quickly, so I should say that I started my agency only in January of last year.
Yes.
So I'm pretty recent I'm a new agent, but I have been working in graphic novel publishing for a very, very long time, since maybe 2003 or so. So at this point, because I've already become so busy, when I have new creators coming to me interested in representation, I pretty much want them to have at least one project that is very well developed.
Right. And would that be from start to finish, or would it be that people would come to you with maybe just like a penciled kind of comic, or,
Mhm.
or do people come to you again with that, or do they come to you with literally, I've got this, I've done it to the correct size, the correct
Mhm.
specification of a
Mhm.
typical comic. Could you help me get this out there? Is it that kind of thing as well?
That's a very good question. And actually, I should be more clear.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't want creators to come to me with a fully realized, complete, completely illustrated project,
Right.
because most publishers would not be happy about that because they want to be involved in the editorial development.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
So, what I usually am looking for is I'm looking for somebody who has a very uh, well conceived synopsis
Right.
or partial manuscript.
Right. Okay. Right. So it
But
gives a taste and a flavor of the story, and
yes,
how the dialogue flows,
yes,
and therefore can then be. Um, would you then help them to sort of fine tune it to then take?
mhm,
Yeah. Okay.
yes, yes. The important thing is that it be pretty clear what the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story is,
Right.
and that you can judge based on the work that they show how uh, experienced or how effectively they can tell a story.
Yeah.
You have to be able, just by looking at the sample materials, you have to be able to tell, yes, they can develop a character that I can identify with as a reader. It's believable. I'm immersed in the story. I don't feel like confused or, you
Right.
know,
So are you primarily looking for comics that are just one-off comics? So as some people call them, I say some people, they're known typically as graphic novels.
mhm.
Um, I always struggle with that term, Janna, to be honest, because I think graphic novels sound so serious, and I sort of first sort of discovered graphic novels in sort of like the late 80s, when people like your Frank Millers and your
Mhm.
Alan Moores
Mhm.
and Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, and I sort of always believed that term was coined to separate comics to something else that appealed to an older audience. So to give it a more serious, so you're not reading comics. Don't worry, you're not reading comics. You're reading graphic novels. But I know that in terms of children's publishing, they still are termed as graphic novels, aren't they?
Mhm. Yes, the terminology is super confusing and
Yeah.
frustrating for, I think, everybody in comics.
Yes.
I personally tend to use the word comics because
Yes.
it's a catch-all term that means any story that is told via sequential art.
Yes.
But the term graphic novel, I agree with you, was sort of invented as a way um, to give comics a little literary cachet to make them
Yes.
feel valid within the world of book publishing.
Yeah.
So
And,
and
and
so
to
it's people still use it for that
Yeah,
reason.
and to get them into bookshops, which I suppose if that hadn't happened, then potentially maybe even what you're doing now wouldn't even exist, because there wouldn't have been an avenue for creators of comics, and particularly of all ages comics.
Hmm.
That opportunity maybe wouldn't have been there if it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another term that you just mentioned, all ages, is
Yes.
another term that drives
Yes.
me up the wall. Because I come from the world of children's book publishing, so
Right.
my very first jobs in publishing were as an editor of children's books.
Right.
So within children's book publishing, uh, it's it's almost unheard of for there to be a book that's all ages because children's develop so
Yes.
through such dramatic stages.
Yeah.
And I think all ages is a term from the comics publishing world that is intended to mean a book that isn't R rated, a book
Right.
that doesn't have violence or sex or stuff like
Yeah.
that.
I suppose because back when I was reading comics, as somebody who was I was going to say much younger, but just a little bit younger. I still read comics, but when I was reading them when I was sort of like 12, 13, and sort of before and obviously after that, um, there wasn't really anything out there because we had the comics code, so everything was kind of approved, so everything was deemed suitable for everybody, wasn't it?
Hmm.
And I remember reading, just we referenced, I referenced Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. I read that when I was 12. There's a huge chance that there was so much of it that I didn't understand when I was
Mhm.
12, but it
Mhm.
looked fantastic, and that's all I was really into. And even now when I read it, to be honest, there's still some things I'm not quite sure. But and so yeah, it is incredibly hard to sort of pigeonhole and go, well, this is all ages. I think as long as it's not got anything that's inappropriate, then it should be really suitable for anybody, shouldn't it? It's,
Yes, yes. In the broad terms, yes, that's true. But in terms of actually selling books and graphic novels,
yes,
the bookshops need to know, where is
yeah,
this book going to be shelved? Is it going to be in the baby section? Is it going to be in the middle grade? Is it for a teenager? So that's why when comics publishers use the term all ages, it kind of hobbles them when it comes to trying to make inroads into the traditional book market.
yes. And so I I discovered your name for the first
Mhm.
time. I think it was only early this year. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. I know that you've probably been on the planet for a little bit longer than that. Your name kind of jumped to my attention on an article that I read on a comics website.
Mhm.
I think it was on Bleeding Cool, and
Mhm. Mhm.
they talked about. I think you secured I'm sure it was that you secured a publishing deal for a certain title. And forgive me, but I can't remember what that was. But that then led me, as it does, to
Mhm.
then see your name
Mhm.
and then see your website. And then I discovered from going to your website, which is now across the bottom of the screen, I then discovered the next one that I'm going to put on, which is Kids Comics Unite,
Mhm.
which I, as a cartoonist myself, found an incredible resource. Would you be able to tell people a little bit about what Kids Comic Unite is?
Yeah. So Kids Comics Unite is originally started as an in-person meetup in New York City.
Right.
So it started in late 2019. I knew already that I was planning to hang up my shingle as a literary agent, and I had been in and out of the industry, and I wanted to find a way to kind of plug myself back in full time. Um and I thought, oh, why don't I organize a little meetup in a coffee shop, and creators can come, and editors and librarians and agents, and we can just have a chat about comics, sort of like what you're doing in your town, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so then I found Mighty Networks, which is a platform very similar to Facebook groups.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, I'll just put the meetup on Mighty Networks, because that way, if we want to chat with each other beyond just our little coffee hangout, then we'll have this place where we can go. And P.S., I don't like Facebook. So I was happy that I found something that was not Facebook. Um, so and then what happened is that the pandemic hit,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I've
all of a
heard about this
sudden,
pandemic.
yeah, all these plans that I had for meeting with editors and kind of
Yes.
getting myself out there in the industry again evaporated. And meanwhile, I had this online platform where people were beginning to share resources, and there was some energy there. So I decided I'm going to start doing a weekly office hour where I
Okay.
just show up for an hour on this Mighty Network, and I'll just answer questions. And so that was what helped Kids Comics Unite take off. It was all word of mouth, people saying, oh, hey, there's this agent who'll just hang out and chat and talk comics for an hour every week.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody's feeling really freaked out because of the pandemic anyway. So it just ended up being a really great bonding experience for those of us who ended up coming together fortuitously at that time. And it started growing and growing. And as it grew, it made me realize, oh, wow, this is really good. There's an opportunity here for me to be providing something of tremendous value.
Yeah, yeah.
And so actually, now I have this whole different vision for Kids Comics Unite than I did when I first started it.
Right. So
So
do you think you will do the in-person version of it again, or is it you will do? Yes.
we want to, yes, we're talking. I'm actually talking with another organization called Kidlit GN. If you go to
Okay.
kidlitgn.com, um, about joining forces for an in-person festival,
Uh-huh.
maybe as early as next fall
All right.
2022.
Right. And whereabouts are you based? Where would this where does it take place?
Well, We have no idea. It would be in the United States.
Right,
I mean, I'm in New Jersey, but
right,
other people who I'm chatting with are in New England and in Las Vegas and
right.
California. And so it literally could be anywhere. Right now, we're just looking for places.
So the original meetup, was that in New Jersey or was that in New York?
New York City.
Right. Okay. Right. So it sounds so glamorous to a guy like me that and such a cool thing that that, and this is what this is all about. What I'm doing, it's about sort of getting fellow creators to have platforms and to discuss things, and I feel very fortunate that I get a chance to talk to people from all different sort of parts of comics, because I love comics so much, and I think it's as somebody who not only makes them but then also puts on a comic festival, as you know, um, being a literary agent, it's you can love comics and you can create them, but putting on festivals or events or running websites that help promote them, there's many elements to comics, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. And the cool thing about the day and age that we're in now, especially, and this has obviously been exacerbated by what's happened due to the pandemic, is that
Yes,
we really are part of this global community now. And even if you're in some small, out of the way place,
yes,
you can connect with anybody anywhere.
yes.
And you can even, if you have a strong brand identity, you could easily make your comics festival become a destination. Like, if you have a real purpose and it's very clear what it is you offer, people would travel to go to your event for
Yeah,
sure.
no. The one thing I learned very early on was that I'm very fortunate because I have some great contacts in the world of comics with other comic festivals, with bigger comic
Mhm.
festivals, and so I've been able to sort of work with them, and they've been able to sort of help me get other people who might not have known of my event before that, but quite good names, And
Mhm.
I was very fortunate in the third year that
Mhm.
a cartoonist called Jeannie Espinosa from Barcelona in Spain. She came over to the event, specifically came to the UK to the event, and that was a huge deal,
Yeah.
because with it being an event that's funded by the town council, basically you have to make sure that they see that them giving you money is that you're using it well, and
Right.
also that they're giving money to something that actually is a good thing for the town.
Right.
So and so it's twofold. It's me showing my town what comics are all about, but it's also
Mhm.
showing the people that come into the event what the town is about as well.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's a great town for the arts
Mhm.
in general. And so I think it is, and that is a way that we can all connect it in different ways. One of the things that I really liked about, or still really like about Kids Comics Unite, is you do, I think, definitely three kind of weekly kind of things that happen. So on the one on Saturday, I always like where you share your works Saturday,
Mhm. Mhm.
where the creators, anybody who's on there, can show what's going on, what project they're working on, whether it be a published project, one that is going to get published, one that they're trying to find an audience for, and that's a really nice way of building a community.
Oh yeah, I've actually learned a lot about how to build a community. And it's interesting because I almost feel like I'm a shepherd, I don't really have to do a lot. I
No,
just kind of ask certain questions, and um I post actually not a lot inside of the community. It's just strategically trying to post things that because I know comics well, and I talk to creators all the time. I
yeah,
know the things that they care about and the things that
yes,
are challenges for them. And I feel the more that I can identify those challenges and ask people, and one challenge is finding qualified people to offer feedback to you on your work. Another
yes,
challenge is keeping going because it's such a solitary endeavor, and keeping
yeah,
motivated, remaining inspired. It's hard. And so I think having fellow creators there who are sort of cheering you on and saying, "You made progress. You're hooray." It
yeah.
means a lot.
No, it really does, because no one's gonna. I don't think it's definitely not the platform like some platforms are. You mentioned one before, but we won't mention that one again. But it's definitely not the platform for where people are going to criticize or be cruel about what you're doing. It's everyone's sort of behind you, and maybe somebody might share something that isn't necessarily somebody else's cup of tea, but maybe people just might not comment. Then they go, well, that's not for me, so I won't comment. But for everybody who might not like this, they'll be able to find something that they can then get behind. And I think what I like about what I've seen of it and how I've used it is that I have about 10 years experience, 11 years experience in making comics professionally, but I'm still learning, and I know that you're always learning, aren't you?
Oh, 100%. Me too.
Yeah. You can never sit back and go, right, that's it. I know it all now, because that's the fastest way for it all to go wrong, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But I quite like the fact that somebody might ask a question where, to me, I think, well, that's quite a simple question, because then I have to remember. I think, well, yeah, it is to me now, and this challenge that somebody is facing in there. I think there was somebody talking about how they were doing like a 4-panel comic strip. I've done a lot of 4-panel comic strips. I'm no Bill Watterson or anything like that, but or Charles Schultz, but I've done quite a few, so I have a basic idea of how a comic strip works. And the question that was initially asked by this particular cartoonist seemed quite obvious to me, but then I realized, well, it is, because I've done enough of these to feel confident, because it's all just confidence, isn't it?
Oh yeah, confidence and persistence. You definitely have to persist, and it can take years and years and years to build a career as a creative. But I guess the people who do it, I feel like those of us who are in this industry, we do it because we can't not do it.
Yes.
We just love it so much.
No, and I think that's true of what's come out of this past year, as everybody sort of found that things were not getting published. People were about to have comics published. They had their launch parties all booked, and they were ready to go, or people knew that towards the end of the year their book was going to get published, or maybe even they might have even been in talks with a publisher that was really positive. You might yourself have been organizing some kind of deals with somebody, and then they ended up not happening because of what's gone on.
Yeah. The other interesting thing that I've heard is that this year has been pretty crazy for publishers in terms of receiving submissions.
Right. Okay.
I almost wonder if lots and lots of people last year had so much extra time at home, and maybe they might have lost their job or something happened, and they decided, this is it. This is the year I'm going to buckle down and I'm going to work on my masterpiece. And then, 1 year later, here we are, and so many people have these amazing creative projects that they've worked on. So yeah, it's quite interesting.
No, definitely. I think we were afforded, well, in multiple ways. We were kind of given time in a weird way, but also it was taken away. If you, I have a young family, and so time was precious, and then suddenly everybody was at home, but you still have to work, and so you still felt like you've been given. I think one thing I found is that you were given more. There were more eyes on people's work because people were craving content, weren't they?
Yeah.
And they were craving it from coming from different places. So one of the things I used a lot more was Instagram, and started, as a lot of people did, started doing web comics on Instagram to then collect together. My ultimate goal is always to collect them together to then get them printed to then sell physically. I always want the physical comic. But one of the things that I found through Kids Comics Unite, I don't know whether it was, and forgive me, Dan, for not pronouncing his surname correctly, but Dan Moynihan, he does a comic called Mark and Zark, and I saw that he was on Kids Comics Unite, and he mentioned a thing called the Sunday Ha Ha. I don't know if you've heard of the Sunday Ha Ha. Yes. And in fact, I'm talking to both Jen Oliveira and Mika Song in I think a week today, actually.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, and so from somebody posting, I think he literally just said, "Oh yeah, this is where I put these comics usually go on the Sunday Ha Ha." So, and again, this is something that I'm sure you say, you've got to have your ears and your eyes open, and you hear of something, you go right, and you jump on it, and you write it down, and you go right, I'm going to go and find what that website is, and that happened with me with the Sunday Haha, and then I managed to get a chance to do a comic for them. So
fantastic.
Yeah, so your website kind of led me to that. So you know, and so I'm very grateful for these fantastic platforms. So thank you, Janna.
You know, before I go, I should mention that there's two things going on with Kids Comics Unite right now that I'm super excited about. The first one is that we're doing a logo contest.
Yes.
Because, yes, we are planning to launch a website. So up until now, this has been Mighty Networks, which is an online community platform, but it's basically private. So you have to, you go to the landing page, you put in your email address, and then you're accepted. It doesn't cost any money, but once you're accepted in, then you can go inside and you can see the whole conversation. And I like the fact that it's private because it allows creators to be really honest about what they're working on, and they don't have to worry about, you know, the public seeing them struggling with, you know, figuring something out. But on the other hand, there's just so many fantastic resources that people are sharing, as you mentioned, and I want a way to be organizing all of those resources and displaying them in a public way that's easy for people to find the information they're looking for. So we are working on a website and hoping to launch it. It'll either be the end of September or the beginning of October of this year. But we're going to need a brand. We need, you know, the whole package. So we are doing a logo contest right now. I think there's maybe a week and a half left until the deadline. I think the deadline might be June 29th, but you'll have to check. There's a blog post on my Janico website that has the information, public information about the logo contest. And we're offering a $500 prize to whoever wins the logo contest. So there is, you know, a cash reward, which is great. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is I don't do that weekly office hour anymore because I did it for a number of months in the beginning of the pandemic. And at a certain point, I realized that I actually need to make money to support everything that I'm doing. So I do have a paid program now, which is $39 a month. And it's basically, it's called Kids Comics Insider, and we do weekly events. So it includes lunch and learns where we talk about specific topics related to comics. We do a book club where we discuss really influential graphic novels from early readers through YA. And then we also do office hours, which is just a free-for-all, talk about anything. And then we do industry interviews where I talk to well-known editors like Gina Gagliano or Mark Siegel. And I talk to creators like Craig Thompson or Jean Luen Yang, people like that.
Right, excellent. So there's lots going on, and I think one of the people I think we have a mutual contact. Is it John Alessand, who I think you've been working with him on a project? I met John. Maybe I'm pronouncing his surname incorrectly, but I saw he'd done a logo submission. So he was so I've seen
maybe I'm not. Maybe you're mispronouncing something. I'm not sure who you're talking about. But
I'm kind of. Let me check who it is, Janna. 1 second. Let me see.
Oh, take them on. Yes. I know who you're talking about. Yes. You're correct. Yes.
Yeah. So I met him in 2019. I was fortunate enough to come over to America to a comics festival called NCS Fest, which took place in Huntington Beach.
Okay.
And I met John and his family at that event. And so what I love about these things that these networks continue and the community kind of builds, even with people that you may never meet, but then suddenly one day you might be at an event and suddenly that person who has sort of definitely played a role in getting you where you are, you might get a chance to meet them, and so one day, have you ever? So we can finish on this, Janna, if that's okay. Well, I was going to ask a couple of things, but maybe both of them have got too long answers. I'm conscious of your time. But have you ever been, or do you consider coming to any comic events in the UK? Have you ever?
Oh, 100%. I love to travel. That's one I cannot wait until we can go back to in-person events.
Yes.
Last year, I was planning to go to the Bologna Children's Book
Ah,
Festival,
right. Okay.
and I was making a trip to San Francisco, and then there was a third trip I was planning. All three trips had to get canceled. So yes, I 100% I would go to the UK.
So fingers crossed. Hopefully we can. I would love to welcome you to Macc-Pow one year.
Yeah.
We have a small budget. We have a big heart. So, but the
That's
great thing
why
about,
I'm here. It's all
yeah,
about the big heart.
yeah, well, that's what it is. And I think what has been great about, we've got to look at positives out of what's happened this past year, and who's to say that whether or not we would have had a chance to talk
Hmm.
if this hadn't happened.
Exactly.
And so, and everyone's been afforded the way to communicate this way and keep things going. And yes, I know lots of other industries have been able to keep going as well. But for me, it's very important that the comics industry still gets a chance to, because at one point when it first all went crazy, the comics industry actually stopped, didn't it?
Hmm.
Even the big publishers had stopped publishing. I think we didn't have a Spider-Man for about 3 months, which is crazy. It's a crazy world when there's no Spider-Man comic. So
Hmm.
what kind of, just to end on then, Janna, what kind of comics do you look for? Are there particular things, or are you just open to anything that's just got a real, again, the heart of what you're looking for?
Yeah, it's whenever people ask me that question, it's very hard for me to answer because I do have pretty broad taste. I like everything from really unusual, more literary, quirky stuff
Yes.
to stuff that's very mainstream and commercial and goofy and funny. Um, yeah, it's so hard to answer. I guess storytelling is what
Yeah.
draws me in, really, really good storytelling.
And I
That's what I
suppose
love.
it's one of those things that you know it when you see it or when you read it.
Mhm.
You know that there's something there, and you've got the experience to sort of think, yeah, this project's got something special.
Yeah, I have to give a shout out to Andy Watson, who's the one of the UK creators that I represent, and he's a perfect example of somebody whose work is just. I mean, I can't even express it in words how much I love it. Because he makes me laugh. He has such a dry sense of humor, and he also has such flair as an artist. His
Yes.
style is utterly unique. There's nobody else who draws like him. It's kind of retro but fresh at the same time, um and there's a slyness to his storytelling and humor that I just adore. So that's the kind of thing that ropes me in.
I think I know Andy's work, but I'm going to double check that just in case, because it's always you can never know enough cartoonists, in my opinion. So
Also, Andy has a fantastic newsletter where he writes about the life of being a comics creator, which
right.
is truly hilarious.
Oh, cool. Right. Well, I shall sign up for that. Well, Janna, thank you so much for your time. I know that you've got a busy day ahead. You're just starting your day. We're kind of midday here sort of mid afternoon here in the UK. I can tell you to not worry. Nothing too crazy has happened during this Friday so
Okay.
far. But I can't guarantee what might happen towards the end of the day.
All
But
right.
up to about 20 to 3, you're all right.
Yes, I'm all right. Right. And
Well,
I
Janna,
definitely hope that, we can chat again because I know people have so many questions. And I
yes,
love talking about industry stuff. So,
yeah, no, well, I've loved doing it. So thank you so much for your time. This video is going to still will be shareable, so I'll send you the link
okay.
and we can share that around, and you can get that to your networks, and I'll probably share it on Kids Comics Unite as well, which I think would be a good thing to do. So
Yes.
So thank you so much for your time. I just want to just say that on Tuesday next week I'll be talking to cartoonist Andrea Bell at 2 p.m. She's just released a new comic called the name has gone out of my head. I think it's called The Leak. In fact, it is called The Leak, I'm sure. Apologies, Andrea. If she's watching, she's screaming, going, "It's not called that. It is called The Leak." Yeah. So Janna, thank you so much for your time. And I'm gonna send you out in the same way that I brought you in, because I think you deserve it even more so now. So Janna, thanks for your time. Take care. Stay well. Bye bye. Thanks, Janna.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, that was fantastic. And I thank you so much to Janna. Morishima for her time and for everything that she's done for comics that I've discovered just in these past few months. So yes, if you go to kidscomicsunite.com, you can check out what Janna is doing over there, and you can subscribe to that and become part of that platform. I strongly recommend it. So yes, as always, thank you to Macclesfield Town Council for supporting this channel. And until next time, stay well. Thank you. Bye-bye.